The steroid era in baseball of the late 1990s and early 2000s was an embarrassing one for the sport. Numerous players were caught taking illegal performance-enhancing drugs to improve their on-field performance. Since the scandal, Major League Baseball has taken numerous steps to rid everything and anything that's tied to that era of baseball. Now, once a baseball player retires, the highest honor he can receive is to be elected into the Hall of Fame. A player is first eligible for the Hall of Fame 5 years after playing his last professional game in the major leagues. Now, recently, many of the players that were tied to the steroid scandal are up for election into the Hall of Fame. This has created quite a controversy in the world of baseball. The controversy centers around whether or not you let these great baseball players, who are also tied to steroids, elected to the Hall of Fame. On one hand, you have players who contributed a great deal to the sport. Players who won championships, broke records, and were overall great ambassadors for the game. However, is that enough reason to let players, even though they were great players, who also took steroids, into the Hall of Fame? While players of different ages, ethnicities, and teams were caught taking these substances, the most notable and prominent players in the scandal were guys like Rafael Palmeiro.
Here's the 2-1 pitch, swinging a high fly ball, deep right field. That ball's going to go way back. It is gone! May have gone on the Utah street.
Sammy Sosa.
Sammy drives one. Get out the tape measure. Long gone. I don't believe it.
Mark McGwire.
So winds and fires. Big Mac. Swing and a shot into the corner. It might make it. There it is. 62, folks.
And Barry Bonds.
Bonds at slightly open stance, feet fairly close together, crowding the plate. The pitch, there's a long one to right field. Forget about it. This one is headed for New Jersey. High into the upper deck. Barry Bonds with a spectacular 3-run homer.
Of those players, Bonds has remained almost the face of the steroid scandal. Writer Von Berg says in his piece, Baseball, Steroids, and the American Dream, that Bonds has stayed in, and in all likelihood will stay in, the center of most discussions regarding the steroid issue. While never actually being proven to have taken illegal substances, many point to the inexplicable physical changes in his appearance from early on in his career to later, as well as a rare increase in power later on in his career when compared to earlier. Like Bonds, many other players have actually never even been proven to have taken steroids, but numerous reports have linked players to steroids in some way or another, and have aroused enough suspicion to the public to essentially find them guilty without actually ever being proven guilty. So far, the answer has been quite clear on whether or not to let these players into the Hall of Fame. No player that has taken steroids, or even has any ties to steroids in any manner, has been elected to the Hall. Now, let's review why that might be. First, let's look at the Baseball Writers Association election rules. One in particular reads, voting shall be based on a player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contribution to the teams in which he played. Now, with this in mind, Wallace Matthews of ESPN points out that steroid or HGH use is cheating, plain and simple, and by definition, cheaters lack integrity, sportsmanship, and character, which directly conflicts with the election rules and the eligibility of players to be elected into the Hall of Fame. A lot of these voters, like Wallace Matthews, see their job as guardians of the Hall. They want to keep the prestigious picture of the Hall of Fame intact. And those players cheated. Steroids were strictly banned by Major League Baseball, but they still used the illegal substances to their advantage. So, the question becomes even more complicated. Some point out the fact that while cheating is never okay, the use of performance-enhancing drugs was so widespread at the time that it became almost unofficially accepted to use, and even more so, accepted by players and coaches of the game. Some even say that executives in league offices must have known about the use, because it was so widespread and common, but those same executives came to accept it because it made the game so much more popular with the increase in power from steroid use. Even more disturbing at the time, Matthew Petroli points out into his investigation into recreational use of steroids, is that this steroid use wasn't even just happening at the professional level, and most likely occurred at all amateur levels of competition, and might still today. It is surely a tough dilemma to face. Is this the way to punish players who gave so much to the game? As Ted Berg of USA Today points out, The Hall of Fame honors great players, not great men. Players who the league continued to pay millions of dollars, even after it was known they took performance-enhancing drugs, are now not being let into the Hall of Fame. For the time being, this difficult question has been answered clearly by the baseball writers. Only time will tell if they change their mind.